How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, Laken Snelling case update. Waives preliminary hearing. Now it's going over to a grand jury. I'm sure we all remember this case. There she is, Kentucky cheerleader. And what she did was horrendous. She gave birth to a baby and then wrapped the baby in a towel along with other cleaning supplies, put the baby in a trash bag, and the baby was found in the closet on August 27th. And that's, I believe that's the picture of when she got arrested about a few days after. I think it was August 31st. And there's a picture, sort of a picture of her in court today for the preliminary. So, guys, I want to give you some updates today because one will tell you why they waived the preliminary, or our thoughts as to why they waived the preliminary hearing, and then also some of the stuff that was discovered that wasn't released, or at least I didn't know. I wasn't aware of it, so this would be the first time I'm sharing it. So again, it was late summer. It was in the morning hours in Lexington, Kentucky, when a 911 call came into dispatch just about 10:30 a.m. on August 27, 2025. The voice on the other end said an infant had been found and that the baby was cold to the touch. When police and paramedics arrived at the Small Park Avenue apartment, they quickly uncovered the grim scene. Hidden away in a closet inside a black trash bag wrapped in a towel lay the body of a newborn baby boy. Emergency responders could do nothing. The child was already gone. The child was cold to the touch. You know, when I've covered this is I think my third video on this. The very first video, when we were trying to find out who made the call, and it still hasn't been released, I thought maybe Laken Snelling could have, maybe some level of remorse. And it turned out we were wrong. Turned out she went out, and as you see, she comes back and then realizes all the paramedics and stuff are at her house, the police, like what's happened. And then basically she winds up admitting to what happened. But when I looked at the towel and I said, you know, maybe when a mother has remorse, they may cover the baby as a sign of remorse. And we did that. I think we talked about that either in the first or second episode I did about Laken Snelling. But guys, she left, had no care, and came back and just saw everybody there. And the only reason why she did the right thing at that point was because she had to. Because at that point, she was already discovered. Integrity does not come after the fact. It comes from knowing this is what needs to be done in the moment and not waiting for it to be discovered. And the towel, you know, how originally in our mindset was maybe a sign of remorse. It wasn't. That baby was wrapped in a towel because it was part of the mess that was being cleaned up. That's my opinion. And I think that's 100% accurate. She wrapped up the baby in the towel with the rest of the stuff she used to clean up the mess and put it all into a garbage bag in the back of a closet. So at first, the young mother wasn't there, but not long after, 21-year-old Laken Snelling, a senior at the University of Kentucky and a member of the school's stunt team and cheer program, returned home to find police already inside. Officers say she admitted almost immediately, yet she had given birth. Officers say she admitted almost immediately. Yes, she had given birth in the bathroom of that very apartment. Now, where she gave birth, that was not mentioned in any of the shows I've done before, but that popped up, that she gave birth in the bathroom of that apartment. So that's something that is new. And guys, if you know more, please add. Her story, though, was inconsistent. Snelling first told police she thought the baby was stillborn. She said she had passed out during labor, even claimed she may have collapsed onto the infant. When she came to, she said the baby was blue and purple, and she assumed he was dead. Instead of calling for help, she cleaned herself up, wrapped the infant in a towel, placed him in a trash bag, and hid him in the closet. Now look at the verbiage there. She said, cleaned herself up, wrapped the infant in a towel, placed him in a trash bag, and hid him in the closet. No, I believe that she used the towel to try to clean things up, and then put the baby in the towel because it was part of the mess, and then put that baby in the closet. The new parts here is the story of her passing out during labor, believing the baby, that she may have, the baby was a stillborn, and then she passed out. You know what's funny? If this ever goes to trial, which it could, that passed out part could work in her favor. That may have to be challenged because, again, she fell asleep. And it makes sense. Could she have fell asleep? Could she have passed out? She just gave birth. So that could fit with the narrative. But what hurts her is you left. You left the baby there. You went whatever it is that you went to do, maybe the hair salon, who knows. And then you came back and you were discovered. And now you make an attempt to do the right thing. So again, later that evening, Snelling was taken to the hospital. The account shifted. Medical staff confirmed without question that she had just given birth, her body still showing all the signs of delivery, even producing breast milk. And to those doctors, Snelling admitted something else. She had noticed movement from the infant, even a faint whimper. So now that is going to be interesting because during the autopsy, it came out inconclusive, but we're still waiting. So right now, there are no charges of murder, manslaughter, none of that, because they don't know if the baby was alive or not. But with that said, she tells the officers on scene that it was a stillborn. And then later on, when she's at the hospital, I have reason to believe from what I read that she tells the medical team that the baby may have been alive briefly. Some movement, maybe even a whimper. And you know what's funny? I heard this before this was released. And I may have touched on this in the earlier episode, but it wasn't confirmed because the stories were just going all over the place. But I think I may have mentioned that because somebody had a series of texts that, they didn't verify it. It was an unknown source. So it's hard to kind of run with that. But now to see it here, that person's source was correct. Because it looks like that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what she said. She went from one story with the police and then may have slipped with the medical team. So that contradiction became crucial. Was the baby born alive, or was the stillborn as Snelling, or was he stillborn as Snelling initially claimed? So the Fayette County Coroner Office performed an autopsy. That was the very next day, August 28th, but the results didn't provide clarity. The cause of death was inconclusive. More advanced testing, microscopic tissue samples, toxicology screens, and studies of gestational age would be needed. Weeks later, we still don't have those answers. They're still pending. I think I was watching Anjanette Levy. She had a really good guest on and kind of reminded me of the updates. When I saw her post it, I was like, oh, yes, I got to revisit this real quick. The guest that was on her show mentioned that if there was a sign that she had hurt the baby, maybe suffocated the baby, whatever, you would see that automatically. It would be pretty quick to see. You would see some level of trauma. So the fact that it came out inconclusive, it's more of a matter of, could the baby have been saved? And that's the thing. So even if she said, let's say it turns out to be truthful, and she said maybe the baby was alive, maybe the baby did whimper, but she still stays to the story that she passed out, people may relate to that because she just gave birth in a bathroom. But what they won't relate to is her leaving and not trying to do the right thing when she came to. So at the end of the day, if you want to play that argument, you can. But I would push on the fact, okay, and you probably did pass out. I mean, that was a tremendous thing that you did on your own. Must have been extremely painful. I mean, you had to cut your own umbilical cord, the afterbirth. But you also, when you came to, you left the house. And you came back maybe a few hours later. So you had that moment when you came to do the right thing, but you didn't. And I think that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt you. Meanwhile, investigators also dug into Snelling's digital life. On her phone, they found photos taken during labor and internet searches about pregnancy, even about concealed pregnancy. Some of these images have been deleted, and prosecutors now argue that amounts to tampering with evidence. So that was not released before. So supposedly there's some pictures of her taken during labor and concealed pregnancy. Looks like they were searching things about concealed pregnancy. And then images, again, those images have been deleted. So interesting, that's new. So by August 31st, Snelling was under arrest. There she is. She was charged with 3 felonies: abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. 2 days later, in her first court appearance, she entered a plea of not guilty. The judge set her bond at $100,000 and then released her home, released her to her house, home incarceration or whatever, being released at home, which is at her parents' house in Tennessee. And no ankle bracelet for her, nothing like that. Real quick here. So she didn't get the manslaughter, murder, none of that, because we don't know what really happened to the baby just yet. So again, these 3 charges could change. You may have to add something, but we'll see. So at the time of her arrest, Snelling was still enrolled as a senior at the University of Kentucky and active on the stunt team. But by September, she had withdrawn from the university and was no longer part of the athletics. Then came the latest update. On September 26, 2025, Snelling appeared in court once again. And this is it here. Let's see. It was a short hearing, barely half a minute. This time her attorney made a strategic move. She waived her right to a preliminary hearing. When I saw that she waived her right to a preliminary hearing, I thought that was unique. And I was watching the Anjanette Levy show, I think Law and Crime. Her guest mentioned like some really great points. The preliminary hearing really is a benefit for the defense team on the surface, right? Let's see what the prosecution has. So very rarely will you see them want to waive that. They want to see the evidence. But sometimes they do. And he said it perfectly well. And that's because the defense team should know everything, because Snelling is the only one that really knows what really happened. And the prosecutor has to prove it. So there could be some benefits to them waiving the preliminary, and I have some thoughts on that. So now a quick reminder, a preliminary hearing is where the state must show probable cause, the bare minimum evidence to keep a case alive. And then after that, then it's a matter of seeing if the grand jury is going to think that there's enough evidence to take this to trial. So for the defense, it's often the first real opportunity to challenge the evidence, question witnesses, and lock in testimony. But Snelling lawyers gave it up. Why? Possibly because the bar is so low that the state almost always clears it. Possibly to keep damning testimony out of the headlines, or maybe simply because this case was always headed to the grand jury anyway. And I have some bullets on that I wanted to talk to you guys on. Hold on a second. I wanted to mention right here. I wanted to talk about just why would someone waive that preliminary. I added some extra thoughts to that. I did some research on that because I thought the preliminary would be beneficial. So again, you got the defense team would say, so first off, there's a low legal threshold. So state almost always meets the probable cause standard. So it's not that impressive. They may have very little evidence, but it could be enough for probable cause. But maybe the defense team wants to avoid publicity. Testimony becomes public and can prejudice potential jurors. So that could be a very strategic move. And again, as a strategic choice, prevents witnesses from rehearsing or previewing defense strategies. So think about if I'm a defense and I'm trying to, see what you got, I may interact with some of your witnesses, and then they kind of start to see, like in my effort to discover the angle they're coming from, they're going to start to see the angle that I'm coming from. So maybe it's good to not showcase that. And then there could also be a negotiation already in play. So waiving sometimes improves bonds or plea discussions. And then efficiency. Case would advance regardless. Prelim may have been seen as unnecessary. All right, now let me get back to where I was. Okay, sorry, and that's where we stand now. The grand jury in Fayette County will decide whether to indict Snelling, and prosecutors could even add or amend charges once they have a final autopsy result in hand. And that decision can come as soon as October. And that answers a lot of questions out there about why hasn't she been charged with murder or manslaughter. So until then, the big question remains unanswered. Was this a baby who never took a breath, or was he born alive and left to die? And what will a jury one day make of Snelling's shifting story from stillborn to blue and purple to movement and a whimper? So again, I think this is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see how this turns out. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, what's your thoughts? Is this going to go to trial, or you think they're going to settle? It's going to be interesting, but we don't really know anything until they get the results back of the autopsy of the baby. But I still say one thing very important here. If she would have passed out, woke up, and even if the baby may have been alive prior, but when she woke up, the baby was purple or whatever, cold to the touch, but she called up and did the right thing, there may have been people that could have been sympathetic. Sure, they would have wanted to know what happened. Did you try to conceal the baby? There's a lot of things in play, but I think a lot of people would have said, but you know what? The passing out makes a lot of sense. She just gave birth, but then she tried to call and do the right thing. But what's going to kill her, literally, is that you cleaned yourself up and then you left. And then you only started doing the right thing because when you came back, the police were at your door. And I would challenge the shit out of any excuse that you would have, noting that you tried to do the right thing when you left. And you're only doing the right thing now because you got caught. Who knows what would have happened if you would have got home and the police weren't there? Maybe you would have found a way to dispose of the baby and no one will ever have known this happened, because I think that was the intent. Your intent was to do what you got to do, whatever that was that you had to do, and then come back and finish it all off, erase all evidence as if you were never pregnant, and nobody would ever have known this baby, who we should give a name to, because there is no name, we're just calling it this baby, would have even existed. So we'll love your thoughts on this, but that's what we got right now for the Laken Snelling case. As always, guys, stay safe and feel free to check out my other material. I'm trying to build my subscribers, and I just can't get any for some reason. So any help would be greatly appreciated. Share, tell a friend who follows true crime, and I do try to cover what I can within the means of my understanding of whatever that case is. But I'm learning more every day, so bear with me. As always, guys, stay safe.